here. Welcome to B Cube Sunday morning with Jim Wright and soon to be David Gerrold.
Hopefully.
He's hopefully he indicated he'd be here. But you know what? If I was David and I had my granddaughter sitting in my lap wanting to play, and my grandson and Charlie running around the living room making me happy, I might not show up either. Uh, so
Yeah.
It'll be who it is. But we do have the one, the only, the Jim Wright joining us here live
Ah,
from the Monument Center in the Monument, they call it, not the Monument Center in South
that's where you're
Dakota.
live from.
Okay, I'm live
Yeah.
from this.
You're
Jim
live
is
from.
live,
Yeah, I'm semi live, sort of live,
sort of
sort
live.
of
You're
live
as
from the
live as
Panhandle, Florida.
any thinking person in northern Florida can be. Uh,
That's
give
right.
my regards to Mr. Getz there for me too, would you?
Oh, you don't have to. You can't give Mr. Gates your regards if you're in the Panhandle of Florida because this is his district. He's never here. He's probably fundraising in Colorado with Marjorie Taylor Greene or something. I don't know the
Oh,
last time that Matt Gates is actually, there had to be a check involved for him to actually be in his district. I don't know where he is. Right, he's probably cheering Russia right now. He's probably right now checking his bank account to make sure that he's still getting paid by Vladimir Putin, still in office, his bank account still enabled. Christ Almighty! But,
oh, if I wish to God that I could be sure you were joking.
I wish to
Uh,
God I could assure you that I'm being sarcastic, but I am not. I,
you know,
Matt, there's this brand of Republicans nowadays, and again, I hate to bust these people. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat either, but it seems like I'm bad mouthing Republicans all the time because, well, I am. But I this is what I don't understand. If you're a member of the Republican Party nowadays, I don't understand. I don't understand how you're putting up with this shit. Like I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton or whatever, but for crying out loud, really, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gates, Lord Boebert, come on. Right, right. What have these people done for you? And I asked my neighbors this here in Florida District 1. What have these people done for you? The bridges that they're rebuilding, that ain't Matt Gates. He voted against it. That's Joe Biden. Matt Gates is none of these people have done anything except stunts. They act on a reality TV like they're the nasty bitches on a reality TV show somewhere on the Jersey Shore, throwing shit at each other and yelling and they haven't done a goddamn thing. They've done nothing for you. These people are supposed to be your representatives. What have they done for you? They haven't done anything. I asked this on Twitter 2 days ago, and I haven't 3 days ago now, and I've got zip. As I said, honest question. You've had a Republican House for how long now? 2 years? Since the last election. What legislation have they passed?
I keep hearing that question asked
the only
around.
legislation that this body of they put Kevin McCarthy in charge, right? And he swore they were going to do the business of America. What business have they done? Give me some legislation, because the only legislation they've passed has been the bipartisan legislation that they absolutely had to, or they would lose their asses. They had to cave to Joe Biden, and they had to pass a budget, because if they didn't, they were gonna get cleaned out. They'd never get elected again. They had to do it. They caved in. But what legislation have they passed? Where's their health care? How long have we heard about this goddamn Republican health care bill since Hillary Clinton was first lady? Where's the Republican health care bill? Where's a draft of it? Show me a goddamn draft. Show me the first paragraph. Where is it? I haven't seen it. 30 years we've been waiting on this goddamn thing.
I can
Infrastructure
help.
bill.
If you look at Obamacare, it looks a lot like the
the one
counter
that Chris
proposal
Christie
by
passed.
Newt Gingrich.
But here's the thing, though. Again, where's the infrastructure bill? Where is it? Because it's the Democrats are the ones that passed the infrastructure bill. where they were going to reduce inflation. Oh my God, that's how they got elected. Inflation. Where's the inflation bill? Where is it? Where's a draft of it? Show me it in committee. It doesn't exist. They've done absolutely fuck all. And that's a technical political term for hell it is that Boebert's doing. They couldn't even draft their own goddamn articles of impeachment. Marjorie Taylor Greene stole those from the last time Democrats tried to impeach Trump, and then Boebert stole them from her. They have accomplished absolutely nothing. So my question to Republicans is, why do you keep... I'm not asking you to vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm asking you, don't you have anybody better? I mean, aren't you disgusted? I would be embarrassed if I was a Republican. I'm not asking you to embrace gay rights and fucking abortion, all right? But for the love of God, these clowns are the best you can do? Come on! I mean, my God, you don't even have a goddamn Reagan. And I couldn't stand that goddamn guy. Just put up with him. My God, Jesus Christ, even the guy that Republicans consider to be the intellectual Republican, the educated, the professor, Newt Gingrich, even that guy has reduced to clicks and likes and like little sound bites of like just nasty reality TV bullshit, right? I mean, when's the last time that guy had an idea? When he got thrown off an Air Force One by Clinton? I mean, come on. You've got to be able to do better than this. These people are not governing. They're not running the country. They're not doing anything. They're just nasty, obnoxious shitheads that think they're on a reality TV show. You know,
well, that's one of the...
Fuck.
I think that their effort is to turn Americans' government into a reality TV show. Because I will tell you, ever since the day I first watched Newt Gingrich in action, I had the firm belief that this man had one objective in mind, and that was to diminish and discredit the faith of the Americans had in their institutions and their government. Yeah. And he did so at the behest of people who are better off with a weak government. A government that can't regulate, a government that can't enforce regulations, a government that can't successfully tax and or spend what they need to do to make the country okay. I am just convinced that that was the objective of the Republican Party since Newt Gingrich took over.
Well, I mean, Gingrich's whole bit was that government's broken and elect me and I'll prove it to you. And again, you can't... I mean, we had 4 years of, and you've heard me say this, you have got to stop electing people who hate and fear government to run government. 13 billion
people. You're talking about Reagan again now.
You're talking about the entire Republican Party since Reagan. Reagan's whole bullshit routine was, and people quote Reagan all the time, the most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Well, you know what? Fuck you, buddy. You were the president of the United States of America. You are, it shouldn't be terrifying. If it's bad, if the government shows up and dicks everything up and you're in charge of government, whose fucking fault is it? It's yours, Ron. You're the guy. And that was a problem with Ronald Reagan, though. Reagan was about this deep. He was a TV star. He was a talking head. You put a script in front of him, and he read those words, and his head nodded up and down, and the monkey made some kind of funny face, and they played the laugh track. When the cameras off, he was like those animatronic things from Disney World, and that was it. And then you turn him back on for the next goddamn TV. The entire Reagan administration was just clever sound bites. Now, don't get me wrong. The guy could give his speech. That speech in front of the Brandenburg Gate, tear down this wall. That was amazing. That's what actors do. You give him he didn't write that damn speech. They put a and he went out there and performed. That's what actors do. I'm not saying Reagan was a shitty actor. He was a decent actor. As a human being, though, the guy was a fucking scumbag. And the worst part about it is that America has this idealized memory of Ronald Reagan. He was this kindly old guy. He used to say racist shit all the time, and white people would be like, "Well, it's just how Reagan is." Even people of color were like, "Well, yeah, it's just Ron." And then you find out after all this bullshit. You got to remember too, I was in Reagan's military. All right, I can't tell you how much of his administration I spent in places like the Gulf of Sidra off the coast of Libya because that guy wanted to fight somebody, right? We're going to goddamn bomb somebody so that Ronald Reagan could be the wartime president that he couldn't be during World War II when his eyesight was so goddamn bad. The only thing that he could do was make syphilis commercials for the freaking army, all right? I mean, they couldn't even put this guy in front of the TV set or in front of the cameras and let him make recruiting ads that they could run in the damn theaters. He made syphilis movies for the goddamn soldiers. I mean, that's what he did. But my God, he was going to be in front of he was going to be some kind of war, for Christ's sake, over some puddle in the middle of the Mediterranean that nobody in the world give a shit about. I spent half the goddamn 80s parked in the Gulf of Sidra because Ronald Reagan had to fight somebody. And the thing about it is, while he's beating his chest and they're flying the flag, oh, America, oh, and patriotism, and the flags are flapping, and Ronald Reagan made America great again. At the same time, he's trading arms to our goddamn enemies to finance an illegal war in South America. And the Iranians are using the same weapons that Reagan sold them to shoot us. And again, I was there. And at the same time, the people that he's selling arms to in the people that he's fighting, the war that he's financing in South America, they're busy killing Americans. They call him on it. The whole country's like, well, it's just Ron, What are you going to do? And nothing. He goes out the door. He's never held accountable. And nowadays, the guy that orchestrated this shit, some piss ant lieutenant colonel, Ollie North, he's some hero of the right, the flag waving people. Where the hell did you go? Did you just leave? Where'd you go? Did you go to the bathroom? I lost him. I'm in here ranting by myself on TV like a crazy person. Where the hell did you go? You can't just leave.
I know you're not a crazy person.
David didn't show up. You can't just leave me alone on the damn. I'm out here yelling like I'm crazy. The hell's the matter with you? But again,
I had to get something to drink so that I could talk without sounding like Nancy Reagan.
Half the problems that we have in the world nowadays stem from exactly that time. Nixon accountable. We didn't hold Reagan accountable. And now here we are with a guy that's got 71 criminal felony indictments against him as the Republican frontrunner, and who will probably be the next president of the United States of America and pardon himself. And
please,
that will be the end of democracy in this country.
Jim. This is not a horror podcast.
Yeah, sorry, man. But again, you're my editor, dude. If I wrote this story, you'd have me beaten in the alley behind the goddamn building. Because you can't. People are like, you can't make this shit up.
I know. I mean, I ain't just sitting here. Since the man's been indicted, his poll numbers have gone up.
It's insane, man. And like I said, I'm dealing with these people all day online. If you follow me on social media, you see these ass clowns on here. I mean, people write me messages. I probably get 10,000 messages. I've been traveling for 5 weeks, and I got to get back on the road Tuesday. And so I haven't had a chance to go through all the messages, but the messages that I've looked at in my public message queue are basically, they're from people that are like, well, yeah, Trump's a criminal and he's a piece of shit and he hasn't done nothing for us. But if he makes you mad, I'm voting for him. And I'm like, How is that a way to run government? How does you?
Well, I
You're like
know
a
this.
4-year-old man.
When I've got a B cubed indictment special running. One of the books that you are in is End Games. It's called. It's
Oh
was
yeah, I remember
supposedly
that.
about the last days of Trump. Not anymore.
Right.
And it's got
I
a
remember
man
what I
sitting
had
in a
in that.
prison cell on the cover.
Yeah.
When I say to people out there that I'm having an indictment special, you know what the most common response is here in South Dakota?
Oh yeah.
Well,
I just
who?
drove through South Dakota.
What about Biden?
Yeah. And again, these are like children. My mother would have beat your ass if I come in a house and I did something wrong, and I'd be like, and she'd be like, you did this wrong. I'd be like, well, yeah, but everybody else did it too. I mean, that excuse, typically you get that excuse beaten out of you when you're about 4 or 5, man. In the name of God are adult human beings wandering around America going, yeah, but what about this guy? What about that guy? I don't give a shit about those people. Like Hunter Biden could have banged a Russian whore on top of a 1,200-pound block of cocaine. He's not the president. Okay? I don't give a shit what the hell happens to that guy. He's not in office. He's not in charge of anything. I didn't elect him. He's just another guy. And whatever. And the hell to him. I couldn't give a crap about that guy. What I care about is that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, took documents that are critical to the security of the United States of America. And I can't talk about this in any detail, but there are caveats on those folders that were laying on the floor. They're in public pictures, that even the existence of the caveats, the fact that the folders even exist. I was living for 20 something years, and I will tell you that I was involved in programs that if the existence of those programs became public, then we're completely compromised, because they can only be used once. They're so critical that if you compromise those systems, they have to go away because they're no good anymore. The problem with that is that in some cases, those programs were critical backup systems that would protect America in the event of, some kind of catastrophe where everything else has failed. And the thing about this is that you are looking at the end result of 20 years of effort by people. In some cases, people who gave their lives to these programs to acquire the information that we needed to build the gear, to do the thing, to design the mission. You're looking at, in some cases, billions upon billions of dollars, and you are looking at a catastrophic loss of capability. And I could see a half a dozen of those programs laying on the floor in that guy's bathroom. And even if he didn't tell anybody, the mere fact he took the documents, they were unsecure for any moment of time, has compromised us. It has cost the United States of America literally trillions of dollars. It may have killed people. It may have killed people who had dedicated their entire lives to protecting this country. It spits in the face of all those people of 40 or 50 or 60, in some cases, years, decades of work to build these programs to protect this country, to keep the people that are right now calling us scumbags safe. And people are like, well, whatever, we don't care, whatever. If it makes you mad, I'm voting for him.
Yeah, that they all want to see. They all want to see Hunter Biden's dick pics all over the internet.
For God's sake, I could care less about this guy. And the thing about it is, again, is just completely. Again, and you've heard me say this probably more than once. I know David's heard me say it. Is the fact that you're sitting here right now. I'm watching members of Congress fighting like children, and worse than children, fighting like they're on a reality TV show. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert like slap fighting on the goddamn House floor, like fucking children, like the shittiest TV show on television, right? And these are your rights. These are people that are trusted to keep you safe, right? And my question is, how Boebert got reelected? How is that possible? Are you telling me that there's literally nobody else in that district of Colorado that you could have put in office but for this clown? Are you kidding me? Literally in that relationship, Boebert's
I got a question.
Boebert's husband walked away from her. They're getting divorced because in that relationship, the sexual predator, the convicted sexual predator, had the moral high ground. Think about that. How does that make sense? What? What's your question?
Jim?
Is your question while I'm quiet so David can talk? Is that your question?
No, just keep going. I'll be right back. I got to go. Keep going.
You got to go. I got to go. What's your question?
There, look what you've done now, Jim.
I don't know. For those of you out there who haven't figured this out yet, the three of us all know each other very well. We just spent a week together in Montana at MissCon. David,
hey,
nice.
I will say one thing.
So.
Like you, I've been driving through a whole lot of back roads up here.
Yeah.
I go home. I see Trump flags, Trump memorabilia, the big Trump pickup trucks of hate and despair. Having driven through Oklahoma, Kansas, South Dakota, Nebraska, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, I haven't been seeing near as much of that in these rural areas as the Trumpsters would have us believe.
Well, there's that. Yeah, I agree. I didn't see as much this trip as I did a year or so ago. I drove all the way from the Panhandle of Florida, diagonally across the Plain States through the top of I drove through Alabama and the top of Louisiana and Texas, and then those states select various members of the same family over and over again, and then all the way up through the middle of the Great Plains, and then into Montana, and then from Montana all the way across the top of the United States. I'm not a fan of highways, so I drove back roads all the way through eastern Montana, and I drove mostly dirt roads through North Dakota and Minnesota, and then the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And so these are some very rural, very conservative, very Trump voting sorts of places. And I didn't see as many Trump signs as I'd hoped, but the ones that I did see were something, buddy. Let me tell you. I should have prepared for this. I have my car has a camera system in, and so I pull film as I go, and I keep meaning to write a post about this. I need a week where I don't have to catch up on everything else. I got to hear it. I had yard work, and while I was gone the last 4 days before I got home, my refrigerator had failed. My wife got up in the morning, found melted ice cream and stuff all over the floor, and so I had to take care of all that. But as soon as I got to go to Michigan and come back, I got to do 2,000 miles this week. But as soon as I get back, I'm going to articles about this. One of those articles will be extracts of the signs that I did see, and there were some amazing ones. There was some Air Force base outside I don't know where the hell I was. It is somewhere eastern Montana, western South Dakota, western North Dakota. That there were some signs in that town that were wow. I had to actually turn around and go back and actually get up. I made sure I got hallucination shots of some of these signs because they were so amazing, and I literally could not. I literally couldn't believe some of the stuff that I was looking at, and some of the anti-vax, crazy Trump vote and stuff. I'm not sure, and again, you're dealing with things right now. I mean, we're on people. If anybody's followed Twitter for the last 4 days knows what an absolute shit show that's been. And, and again, I made a comment about RFK, and I got 4 days of anti-vax, socialized medicine, Satan's coming, that sort of thing, 5G microchip stuff. And again, I don't know how in the 21st century, in the second decade of the 21st century, you have Americans that believe this garbage. It's unbelievable.
It is. Now, Jim, let me interrupt you for a second. Or not.
Or not. Were you going to ask David a question? Good luck.
Hey, well, before the show, Jim and I had a theory. David was sitting there with his grandbaby in his lap, Charlie, the dog, running around the living room. And he said, do I go sit there and listen to Bob and Jim rant? Or do I sit here and play with my baby?
Well, you're lucky, too, because my wife is watching our grandson today, and she's actually taking him out to another relative's house to spend the day, because otherwise I would be sitting here making drooly noises in front of the baby, and you guys would be on your own. But that's just how.
There's nothing like like a baby to reduce a grown man to a gibbering or is it gibbering idiot.
That's right.
So,
on the other,
I was like, I get maybe Layla will make an appearance, and
that's right.
And she smiles, and that's my reward for acting like a goofball. So anyway, sorry I'm late. I overslept. I was up late finishing a story, which Bob will get to see first, because you'll see, Bob. You'll either like it or hate it, and it's either going to be a history-making story or a world-class faceplant. But it was up late. Those last couple paragraphs, I'm going to take another couple look at them, and then you'll get them. As for things to rant about, there is no shortage. I'm glad Jim got it out of his system before I got
here. My system, I ain't even get started. I'm not even warmed up yet.
We barely got him past Ronald.
We barely. It's like we got the tip of the iceberg. We know there's a lot more there. Good morning, Jim.
No. How many panels have you sat with me this week? In the last 2 weeks, how many panels have you sat with me?
Yeah, by the way, remember that story I told you? Remember that story I told you about the guy who had to pee for 6 other people? That's the one I'm going to send to Bob. I just finished it last night.
That's right.
And
I'm the only person that can out-rant David. So don't even, yeah.
I don't know. I'm just in admiration.
That's
just right. Like, by the way, before I get serious about my next thing, thank you very much for plugging the GoFundMe. If you can plug it one more time, we'll hit the target.
I was going to do that. In fact, we needed to talk about it here, and brought it up, and then I'll throw it back out again.
I hate asking people for money, but we, and it's like we're on strike, so the two deals I was negotiating will probably evaporate, because that's what usually happens during a strike.
Right.
And right now I'm the sole source of income, because Elise is taking care of the babies, who are absolutely adorable. I do not resent, it's like, yeah, go. And Sean has to, because of the construction going on around our house and whatever, Sean is rethinking his own career opportunity for what we can do in Vermont. And because he's such, I'm so proud of Sean. He's just such an amazing, he's my moral support. He's my emotional support. So whatever I can do to get him re-established in Vermont is like, that's the goal. And so we looked at it. We can do this. It's like we had to borrow money to do enough repairs to get the appraisal, so we can get the loan, so we can do the repairs, so we can sell the house, so we can go to Vermont now. And so we are now on we got to raise just enough money so we can do the repair that we need to do to repair the kitchen. It's like, donut. Anyway, we reached a point where Sean says, Dad, we are desperate, and you're going to have to do the GoFundMe. And I said, I've been putting this off for 6 months, trying to look for other sources of income. We finally said, okay, I'll do it. And people have been so generous and so thoughtful, except for the one woman who I thought this was interesting, who said, well, it's wrong to ask the fans to support you. And then you got 3 able-bodied adults. I said, oh, God, does she not know? So anyway, so I
Well,
blocked her.
the other side of it, though, too, is the fact that as writers, as creators, we are entirely supported by fans, whether you're buying books or in my case, you're buying artwork, you're buying stories, you're buying books from Bob. Ultimately, if you like, and the thing is that most of the people who read me, for example, are followed me not for the short stories that I write, but they're following me for the political content on my social media feeds, and social media doesn't pay. Elon Musk is not sharing any of his money with me. And so if you enjoy those feeds, and you enjoy those posts, and you enjoy those things from David, and you enjoy things like this podcast, then the only way that we're able to do this is, right. And
the industry has changed.
Right.
Let me say this. When I started out, it was possible to earn a fairly nice living. You do 1 or 2 novels a year. You do a bunch of short stories. You could put money aside to buy a house. You really could. You work at it for 4 or 5 years. You got enough. You can put a down payment. You keep working regularly. You cannot do this anymore. If you had a steady job back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, you could buy a house. But, here's 2 young people, my kids, who the economy is geared up. They could, even if both were working full time, they still could not put enough money away to buy a house because the economy has gone lopsided to benefit
especially where you're at.
Yeah.
Especially in Los Angeles.
We want to get to Vermont because it'll be quieter. It's like I woke up this morning, let the dog out. I still haven't fed him. I woke up this morning, I let the dog out, and I was amazed at how quiet it was. And it was like, okay, I'm going back. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. I went back to bed. That's why I overslept. And I thought, I need this quiet because in the middle of the day, we've got the traffic and we've got the this and we've got the that. And then occasionally the airplanes overhead. And it's like, and then of course, it doesn't happen very often, but it's usually in the middle of the night, the police choppers are circling with the spotlights and whatever, because some jerk somewhere is decided he's going to, be on the 6 o'clock news the next day, whatever. So, I mean, here we go. Here,
baby break.
Baby break. The baby break. Here is the most beautiful girl in the world.
Baby break.
And her daughter. Hello. Hi, sweetheart. Yeah. Look. See that? You see that? You get a smile? I get a smile. Yeah.
All right.
There we go. All right. Thank you. Yes. So, right. So, people ask, where's the 5th book? I say, you just saw the reason why you're not getting it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
So we have a whole ritual here at 7 o'clock. I join. We all go in Aiden's room, and he gets to play for 20 or 30 minutes. And we take turns holding the baby. And when it's time for Aiden to go to sleep, I get the baby, and we come in here and we sit and I read email or play, or bounce her around until she shuts up. And we have a good time for about 20 minutes. I get 20 minutes of baby time every night, and it's very relaxing because I don't have to think about anything but making sure she's okay. So
well, that's the thing, though. I mean, this is, if you're not, look, I'm not saying everybody has to have kids, but for those of us that do, then that's why you do the things that you do, and it's a metaphor for everything else. Either you're a nation and a civilization who cares about the world that we're leaving to the next generation, or you're not. And that's really, we talk about left and right in this country, and conservative and liberal and Republican and Democrat, yada, whatever the hell labels you want to throw out. Ultimately, what it comes down to is either you give a damn about the future, and not your future, but the future that we're leaving to the next generation, or you don't. And everything depends from that. Because if you don't give a shit about the future, then you don't give a damn about anything but profit now, satisfaction now. You don't care what happens. And I hear this all the time. I get this from people. I literally have had people that I care about say to me to my face, well, even if climate change is real, and I'm not saying it is, but even if it is real, I'll be dead before it's a problem. Well, that's that's selfish bullshit, man. I have a grandson. What kind of world are we leaving these people, man? Our children, your children are not going to thank you for being anti-vax conspiracy nuts who didn't take action when you had a chance. Because I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to deal with this shit now, since we're the ones who made the mess, than it is for them to build seawalls around rising oceans and crops. All it takes is a rise of 1 degree in temperature, where right now we don't care because in America we got plenty of food, but 1 or 2 degrees rise in temperature, all of that food is going to go away because you won't be able to grow it in America anymore.
Yeah.
And I just drove through thousands of miles of cropland with signs of people that don't give a shit. And I'm like, how can you be a farmer? How can you be a rancher
without caring about the weather? You got to care about the weather.
I just spent 3 weeks in Michigan, and that's where I'm from. I'm from agricultural farming, Michigan. Used to be when I was growing up, they'd watch TV. You get up in the morning, watch Farm Report, right? You got to know what the weather is going to be like that today. You never see people more obsessed with weather than where I'm from. Nowadays, they all got smartphones, and all they do all day is look at the goddamn weather. I'm like, how in the hell could you be people who worry about the rain and the weather and the temperature all day and not give a shit about climate change? Because you're literally it. And the answer is, we'll be dead by the time it's a problem. It's not our problem. I literally have people whose entire livelihoods, they talk about our way of life, our traditional way of life, the life of my family. For 100 years, we've been on this land. Well, it ain't going to be much longer, man. How in the hell can you
be underwater?
How can you talk about the history of your family and the fact that you're goddamn farmers and that this stuff matters to you and not give a shit about?
Let me say this. Science fiction writers were predicting not climate change, but futures back in the 50s. They started getting serious about specific. I remember Cyril Kornbluth, one story, wrote a story about our culture is like a truck racing down a narrow mountain highway at high speed. It's going to crash. And he was talking about the whole world, but he was also talking about the economic reason that, the truck is the fact that we are blind to the dangers ahead. And that's vision stuck in my head ever since. And the ecology movement started in the early 70s. I had a little green ecology sticker on my car. It was a gas burner. It took me a while to figure out the relationship. Okay. I admit it was a Mustang. It's a Mustang convertible.
I own one of them.
I love. Yeah, they were beautiful. Anyway, but when I figured out, oh crap, every single one of us needs to be responsible, not just on a personal level, but we need. There's a bumper sticker: think globally, act locally, and that was where it started. And it's like that was the part of the source for the war against the Tor. It's been part of everything else I've written. It's part of Hell. It's part of most of my stories. If we're not thinking about living in harmony with our environment, we're screwed.
Right. Again, like I said, I just drove across, same as you. I've covered just over 5,000 miles in the last 5 weeks, and I'm about to do 2,000 miles more. And it's stunning to me, the lack of don't give a shit of 90% of America. And we just, because part of the problem is the fact that we've had so many resources and so much plenty for so long that we just can't conceive of the fact of a world where that doesn't exist for us. Now, we are well aware of the fact as Americans that not everybody in the world has what we have, and that's why we call ourselves exceptional. And there's this massive don't give a shit. Screw those people. They don't deserve it. And, they got it coming. Their God hates them or whatever the hell it is. But there's going to
but if you've done any traveling, and part of the problem with those people that we're talking about, the ignorant ones, is they don't travel. If they've been to Hong Kong or Tokyo or or Melbourne, or if they or London or Paris, they would see. Don't talk about those people as disadvantaged. They are leaping far ahead of us. And like I was in Hong Kong in 2005 or 7 or somewhere around there.
Yeah, I was there right about the same time.
Everywhere was flat screens, everywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And I came home and everybody was still using those bulky CRTs. And I said, you don't know what the future is going to look like, but we're all going to flat screens. And it was like 2, 3, 4 years before the flat screens arrived in America. And I said, I've seen that part of the future. And and not only that, in Hong Kong, they were using cell phones that they could make video calls on. We don't do it very often here, but people there were taking it for granted. So the idea that those people are behind us, no way. We're not investing in our own future. Let me say it that way.
Well, and that's the thing, America, we used to invest in our future. And I gotta be careful saying we used to do this and we used to do that, because there's a degree of, rosy glasses nostalgia. In fact, I was just dealing with it. We just was looking at a politician that was online. Somebody wanted to mention, though, I saw the comment go by. It says 90%. 90% seems pretty cynical, Jeff. Well, yeah, you got me. I'm pretty cynical these days. But and that's probably an exaggeration. It's probably not quite that many. But then again, maybe it is. I don't know. But you got me. You're right. I am pretty cynical. I feel like I've earned it. But again,
you have the right to be cynical because you've seen.
I try to be optimistic. I don't consider myself an optimist. I don't consider myself a pessimist. I consider myself a pragmatist.
Well, I used to.
But there are days where I'm pretty
feel that
cynical.
way about the movie. I used to feel that way about the movie industry, television, because it was so inspiring. And then and some of the people I worked with were truly inspiring. And even people I haven't worked with. But I got to tell you, Joe Straczynski is an admirable producer, and Bill Prady and Chuck Lorre, The Big Bang Theory, really good guys, and even Marty Krofft, who had a hell of a temper, but Marty made good deals, kept his word, was honorable, and I love Marty Krofft. I think he's terrific. I would go back to work with him, and I've had meetings. His daughter's running the company now, and she's wonderful. They're great people, as opposed to some people who they get in the producer's chair and they think they are a feudal lord. And I'm not mentioning any names like Gene Roddenberry. All right. So
how did I know that's where we're going to end up?
yeah, I know. It's like, and Gene could be marvelously inspiring, but he was a terrible manager.
Well, he was
which
a Navy officer, and
he wanted him to.
Right, he was a Navy officer, Navy pilot, and again, this is why when people say to me, you should run for office. No, I shouldn't, and you should figure it out by now that military officers make crappy politicians or crappy business leaders, and not always. I don't like to get caught in the 90% thinking, but we are not trained that. We're trained to give orders. All right, we're trained to be autocrats. We give orders.
Back in the 30s and 40s, you had people running the studios who loved making movies. That was their thing. Yeah. I love making movies, and then something happened around the 50s, the 60s, into the 70s, where some accountants realized, we could make a lot of money making movies. There was the blockbuster syndrome kicked in. And now they don't make any movie unless they know they're going to make millions and millions of dollars with it, billions of dollars. It's no longer about making a good movie. It's about making a profitable movie. And that's why we are no longer seeing pictures we're no longer seeing the kinds of experiments that push the art forward, except from the independent producers. Right. So.
Yeah, and that's definitely a thing. You see a lack of risk taking and you see again exactly what you said. In fact, we talked about this in Montana a little bit here at a couple of the different panels, that you don't see some of the creativity, you don't see some of the innovation, the very innovation that led to the risk taking and innovation that led to these massive franchises that refuse to take risks nowadays. I mean, Star Wars is a hell of a risk for a lot of people.
And the only one who believed in the film at 20th was Alan Ladd Jr. Everybody else thought it was going to be a big flop.
Yeah.
Especially because it costs so much to make. And
right.
science fiction doesn't make any money. But I'll give you an example. Disneyland started out as Walt's dream of a park that he could take his kids to that would be a lot of fun for them. And while Walt was alive, Disneyland had a spirit to it. After Walt died, there were people who looked at Disneyland and Disney World as profit machines. And so rides get designed not because they're great rides, but because they're profit machines. And so Disneyland has turned into a highly monetized shopping mall with rides.
Yeah.
And it's no longer, and Walt would come back. If Walt could come back, they'll defreeze him. They'll thaw him out. He'll come back. He'll be appalled. He'll say, some of these rides are pretty good, but what have you done to my parks?
Right.
Because it's no longer Walt's dream as much as it's, let's see how much money we can pull out of the public.
But
and
again,
Michael Eisner was, or was it Iger? One of them said, we're going to keep raising prices until attendance plateaus. And
right.
so Disneyland,
and then we'll
what they've
dial it
done
back
is
10% and go, yeah.
And what they've done is they've priced Disneyland out of the market for lower income families.
Right. Well, but again, this is also, this is a metaphor for America. We have priced poor people out of America, out of the American dream. Now, I'm not saying that poor people ever had a fair shake at the American dream, whatever the hell that is, but now they really don't. And again, it's also the fact that America's not fun. It's this desperate, we have this kind of desperate canned Disneyland packaged franchised fun. And we don't, we're again, there was a time when we invested in, we're going to be really careful of generalities here because, like I said, if you've been following my Twitter feed for the last couple of days, it's been kind of fascinating. Somebody had mentioned one of the politicians, our favorite person, Nikki Haley, had talked about 2 days, yesterday morning or yesterday or the night before, somewhere in the last 48 hours, she tweeted that when you were growing up, when you were a kid, life was so much simpler in America and it was so much better. And nowadays it's Joe Biden's America. And I'm like, hang on, back up. Because Nikki Haley was born in 1972. And she apparently forgot all about the 1970s. And she's talking about how much shit was better back then than it is now. Because I was born 10 years before that in the early 60s. And I got to tell you, I lived through the 1970s. And this pie-eyed nostalgia for your childhood, sure, it was a whole lot simpler and better because you were 4 and your parents took care of everything. All right. But if you were there for Watergate and the Iran and you were there for the OPEC oil embargo and the civil rights movement and all the shit, the great malaise,
I was there.
Ballooning inflation, the goddamn
busting.
From one day to the next where you're going to wake up in the middle of a fucking nuclear war. And, I mean, this nostalgia for the 1970s, and that now has turned into a 48-hour long conversation that I'm watching scroll past on my screen right here over how shitty the cars were in 1970 and especially the 1980s, which I'm really enjoying. But anyway. We've all agreed that the Pacer was an abomination, but not as bad as the K car. So anyway, like I said, I have to be careful when I say things like there was a time where we invested in America, but we did invest in America. We did big projects. We built a space program. We built the Eisenhower highway system. We built these big projects, and now I grant you, in 50 years hindsight, we didn't pay attention to certain things like environmentalism and that sort of stuff, but we were investing in a future that would make America better for everybody. America would not be what it is right now without the highway system. You couldn't have things like Walmart. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying you couldn't have things like that without the highway system. You couldn't have a lot of the stuff that you enjoy today without those investments that previous generations made. Right now,
are you reading the chat? This is,
sorry, I was looking at you. I was actually watching the background on your feed and watching the
Oh,
dog
yeah,
go
well,
back and forth. And so I missed the chat. Yeah, I'm sorry. What did it say?
it's like some of these people are saying some really good things.
Yeah.
Government should be run like a business is horse exhaust, because business has to show a profit.
Right.
Government doesn't.
Well,
Medicare, the overhead on it is 4%. If that were a private industry,
right.
the overhead would be 40%.
Right.
And so they would be saying, we can't afford to pay you. You have to die.
Right.
Right. And then there's there's another one, which I really want to, we will never get a future. We want one quarterly report at a time.
Right.
That is brilliant. Thank you for sharing that.
Well,
and then there's another one. I hope she's quoting someone else.
No.
Or said, "Do you remember we were growing up? Blah blah blah. We have to vote Joe Biden out." I hope you're quoting someone else, because otherwise you're an idiot. I mean, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't have the patience for stupidity anymore. I don't. It's like, I'm old.
But,
I'm an old man. I'm gonna die soon. I have a right to be cranky.
But the part that kills me is like, Nikki Haley's a good example, and I want to be careful how I say this, but the thing is that Nikki Haley, first of all, she talks about how much better things were when she was growing up. Well, first of all, you were a child. Your parents took care of everything. Of course, things are simpler for you. But the other thing is when she starts talking about America and communities in this country, this is a woman who hides her own ethnic identity to pass for white privilege in the United States of America, because she didn't have those opportunities. If she used her actual name, Nimrata, she wouldn't get elected where she's gotten elected. And so it's just hilarious. It's hilariously ironic to me that she talks from a position of white privilege and talks down to people who didn't have the opportunities that she had, that it tells them, well, in America, you can be yourself. Really? Because you're not. And again, and I see this stuff all over the goddamn place with people that have blinders on. And again, I think this is one of the things that defines us in America, are those people that can either empathize with who other people are or who can't. And I think that's probably the biggest division between political ideologies nowadays. I literally look at it, I did a 14 columns of Twitter feed of various different trending topics. And the thing that defines a lot of these are people that just don't give a shit about anybody else and literally cannot put themselves in anyone else's shoes. And I will say this. I say this is not unique to the right. I just spent 40-50 hours this week listening to people on the left say, "Wow, some rich guy died in a submarine. Fuck him. He got what he deserved." Whoa! Nobody deserves that. I grant you that those people were probably foolish. I grant you that. But that kind of foolishness is not limited to rich people in submarines. That's people who know that smoke is bad for them and can't afford it, and spend $400 a month on cigarettes, okay, and don't have health care. All right, it's the same kind of mentality. And expect civilization to just come to their rescue, right? I see it out here.
Actually, no, they expect Jesus to come to their rescue.
Well, there's that. I see it out here. I passed this morning. I had to run to the store. I'm doing braised spare ribs today. Don't throw that in there just for shits and giggles, but I'm doing braised spare ribs today, and so I had to run to the store and get a couple of things. And as I'm going down the road, which is my store, it's just 2 miles this way, I'm going down the road to the store. Some guy goes past me at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning on some kind of crotch rocket, and the guy must have been doing in excess of 100 miles an hour with no helmet. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't know what that guy's political ideology is. I don't care. But he's probably 19 years old, and that mentality is probably more foolish than the guy that died in the submarine. Okay.
And at that speed, he's not even going to be any good as an organ donor. It's
the doctor I know, like I said, The doctor that I know calls those people donor cycles. But
Yeah.
again, you know, if that guy goes into, we will expect civilization to come to his rescue. And so
Yeah.
I'm not sure that kind of foolishness. But what astounded me were people that claim to be empathetic, who claim to care about humanity, who filled my Twitter feed from the left with "fuck them," they got what they deserved. How did the 19-year-old kid on that submarine get what he deserved? Because his dad's a jackass? How did that? How do you? What?
Can I interrupt you there for a second?
There. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a call out here. I was watching all of that too, feeling rather deserved. And the first major statement of why are you idiots being so stupid about this was David Gerrold crawled across my Facebook feed with this isn't right what you people are saying. I don't remember exactly your
I
wording.
said it's not funny, it's not amusing, it's a tragedy, and why are we making fun of people dying?
Right.
Yes. And for that, David, just let me say thank you. That was you were the first I saw coming out with that.
Right. And again, you can
it.
point at this and say, again, this is the part that got me, and I'm trying to figure out how to write this up, how to write this particular article. But there were a number of people that said to me, well, you know, these people shouldn't be allowed to do this. They're spending they're rich people, they're spending all this money, and then they've got all these other people involved now, and it's millions of dollars. And meanwhile, there's all these refugees that are out here in this tragedy, this horrible tragedy that happened in the Mediterranean. And you know, and those resources should be devoted to that. In fact, I may have mentioned something along those lines myself. But the point was that the rich people shouldn't be allowed to spend their money in that fashion because it's foolish. Now, a year ago, and we're coming up just about exactly a year ago, as a matter of fact, I said something on Twitter that got me in a shitload of trouble. And that was the fact that on the night of the 4th of July last year, my neighbors, who are and I say neighbors, this general area in the county in Florida District 1 that I live in, this is one of the most impoverished areas in the entire country. We're out blasting $1,000 worth of fireworks off on America's birthday. Now, these are people that can't pay their rent. They don't have health care, a lot of them. They are people that spend $400 a month on cigarettes and lotto tickets and booze, and their kids got their teeth rotted out of their mouth, literally rotting out of their mouth, all right? And, wow, it is very loud in the background at your house, David, very loud. And anyway, I had said, you know, I had said something along the lines of, you're screaming about Joe Biden's economy, who can't afford dental care for their children, that are spending $1,000 or more on fireworks. And that got me in a hell of a lot of trouble, and probably rightly so, where people said to me, how dare you say what poor people can spend their money on? Fair point. I will say that it's foolish. I grew up on the bottom end of the economic scale, and my parents skimped a lot to make sure that we could afford health care. And so I kind of see it from that viewpoint of how responsible my folks were as compared to how irresponsible some of my neighbors are. That said, there is a legitimate case to be made that I don't have any business commenting on what these people spend their money on. Okay, fair enough. I win. You're right. Or you win. You're correct. But at the same time, the same people who said that to me are telling me that rich people don't have the right to spend the money on fucking submarines. And so, and you think, well, hang on a minute. Now we had to spend millions of dollars on rescue. Well, I got news for you, and it's going to happen again this year when people launch fireworks and burn half the forest down, and we spend millions of dollars in this district that we don't have to put out the fire. There will be houses that burn down because there are every year, and civilization.
Let me underline that for you.
Yeah. So
the fire danger here in California is so bad that the insurance companies are no longer insuring. They're no longer taking on new policies, and they're canceling area.
Same thing here in Florida.
Insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but it's particularly bad here in California because we had like 5-6 years of drought, and all of a sudden we had an incredible. I mean, the snowpack was so high that in some places it buried the ski lifts, right? And we had this incredible snowpack, like 600% more than what, and it's coming down now as floods.
Yeah,
it's melting as floods, and what is happening is the brush is really. Oh yeah, we were thirsty, and we have a serious dry brush problem. And as the summer heats up, that brush is going to dry out. One spark, one idiot with a sparkler is going to cost $1 billion worth of forest.
right.
The fires are inevitable. The fires are inevitable, and I hope. I know that the governor and the various agencies are very much aware of the problem. It's been all over the news, but we're just one spark away from a disaster.
Yeah, but like I said,
so, and I know we're not the only state.
Yeah.
And part of the problem goes back to a lot of the services were canceled during the Trump administration, and it's impossible to get them back up again. One of the reasons for the pandemic is we had 37 agencies around the world to deal with the possibilities of pandemics, and the Trump administration shut down 30 of them. So when the COVID started up, we were unprepared, deliberately unprepared, because Donald Trump said we didn't need to spend that money.
Right.
We'd rather put it in his pocket.
Right.
Okay. Hey, gentlemen.
Yeah.
I hate to do this, but
well, then don't do it.
Don't do it.
No, just kind of like when you've got hemorrhoids and you feel that need to go to the bathroom. You hate to do it, but you got to do it.
Wow, that's an analogy I didn't expect to be part of today, but thanks for that, Bob. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really needed to have that image.
Thanks for that. That's what you want to hear from your editor. Thanks, buddy.
Well, it's just telling you that I have a checkout time.
Okay.
And the hotel is sold out tomorrow.
We all have a checkout time. Most of us don't know what it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
For somebody.
All right, Bob, I have a story for you. The story I finished last night. You will get first look at it, because if you're the only one brave enough to publish a story about a guy who has to pee a lot. So, but it's political enough that it'll work.
I haven't found much from you and Jim that I'm afraid to publish, because you know what? You guys write well.
That sounds like a challenge there. Thanks for calling me a hemorrhoid. I will endeavor to see if I can find something you're afraid to publish.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, come on. There was a Western Writers Association meeting here in the hotel. Have you ever seen a Western about hemorrhoids?
No, I don't. Actually, yes. Yeah, the shootist. John Wayne had hemorrhoids. He had to wear the little cushion. Yeah, absolutely. You bet.
Yeah.
Riding all those horses is not good for your butt, you know.
That's right.
But who wants to sit on a horse for 10 hours?
That's right. That was the story. That was the shootist. He had the little cushion. He gave it to the guy that was running the trolley in town. Yeah. Wow, and there's a thought there, and that's a perfect place to dismount the hemorrhoid cushion.
All right, yeah, we'll have alternative hemorrhoids coming your way soon, starring stories by Jim Wright and David Gerrold.
All right, I'm sorry I came in late, but believe me, you didn't want to see me unslept. So, Jim. Jim, thank you. Thank you for your efforts on the GoFundMe. I really appreciate. We are.
Yeah, well, I'll get another one.
For the first time in a week, we started smiling again, because we're so stressed out over here, and I'm trying so hard not to let I don't want to put that on Facebook, because the people who hate me will jump up and down in joy, and I'd rather have them grit their teeth going, rah, 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 and he's got cute kids too.
Right.
Yesterday was Sean's birthday, and we had a great day yesterday, so we're all in a good.
Happy birthday, Sean.
I was exhausted. Yeah. So
and I'll get it. I'll get some up on the BQ Press Project page or the BQ Press site too.
Right.
So Jim,
all out there watching, go donate to David's GoFundMe. Cause, and you'll get it back in spades when he gets Vermont gets settled in, and he and I can finish our project, and and you'll
Well, I
get
suppose
more content.
if they
You get
go
more
to-
content.
If they go to the GoFundMe, there's links to download 2 ebooks, and when we
Yeah.
finish up, I'm going to post another link to another ebook. So
Yeah.
you are getting, the people who donate
Getting
are going to
something
get
out of
a
it. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
I
by
don't
the
like
way,
asking
Jim?
for money. I like selling things, but you're not allowed to sell on GoFundMe. So I'll give the stuff away, and you can donate.
Right.
So
all I know
Well,
is you're a national treasure, David, and
oh, well, thank
unlike
you.
the Mount Rushmore, you
I don't
know,
want to be. I don't want to be on Mount Rushmore.
we're not. We just you get to be everywhere for everybody.
so it says
I
don't have to
national.
go to
You're
South
like a
Dakota to
national
fight.
treasure, and that's why your life feels like a Nick Cage movie.
All right.
And
Okay,
while you're
thank you.
contemplating your next hemorrhoid story.
That's right. All right, let's get out of here.
we-
All right, I got
Okay,
great
guys, thank
spirits
you,
to
and
go.
be back with us next week, because next week is first Sunday where we have Irene Radford. I shouldn't stop. I shouldn't. Karen Anderson and Joyce Reynolds and Brenda Clough are going to bring us a differing perspective on the world. And the week after that is going to be the B Cube Press gun violence discussion. Yeah.
If you
You're
want to
just
invite me
trying to
back
get
for
hate
that
mail,
one, I
aren't you?
have
You're just
something.
trying-
I can
Look,
have
man,
something to say. Yeah, but you better have
David?
Jim and I back for the gun violence discussion.
Yeah. Look, but look, man, I have already gotten death threats this month, and I already got stalked by some creepy weirdo. You know, now you want to do gun violence? Thanks, Bob. After calling me a hemorrhoid. Thanks.
Well, David, consider yourself invited.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, I got
have-
another person going to be joining us, so you'll be great. It'll be great, and thank you all. And now,
Oh
Unplug.
no,
I'm doing
we're
this on
going.
my
We're going.
laptop.
I can feel it, Dave. I can feel it.
Come on.
hey, I'm gonna do this on my laptop, and it's been real funky.
Come on, dude. I
on how
can
it
only-
behaves, but wave goodbye now, and y'all